Hey there, welcome back to All That Matters Online. We have a bit of a treat in store. We have a proper cross-track music sport 360-degree catch-all session. A little bit about artists, a little bit about athlete management and the companies that they work with. We have three great US-based leaders, all new to All That Matters, with three very different roles. But all with a global outlook, either managing artists, athletes, or overseeing the business side of entertainment, hence 360 degrees. We want to find out more about how artists are surviving, what the future looks like, and how music companies in general are working with media and tech platforms, but it does all begin with the artist and the athlete. We have, to start with, we're gonna talk to Wendy Ong from TAP. We also have Marc Perman, and we have and joining us, I think, all the way from New York, Oana, Ruxandra as well. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, or this evening for you in the States. We're going to start with Wendy. Wendy is a Singapore success story. An unprecedented track record of breaking artists in every corner of the globe. Personal journey that has led her from Singapore to leadership posts at the industry's top label, making her a preeminent top modern music executive. She is the president of TAP and TAP Records in the US. She oversees the management and label activities for a hugely diverse roster of artists that include household names Lana Del Rey, Dua Lipa, Ellie Goulding, and Haley Steinfeld, and more. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. I can't believe it's the first time, 15 years, we finally got you on stage, and it had to be virtually. But please, a little bit of background into yourself, a little bit more about TAP, and what's your role?
Hi, Jasper. First of all, it's really a pleasure to be part of this conference. I've obviously being Singaporean, I've obviously been aware of the conference all these years, and I always wanted to attend. So for my first time to be speaking is really quite exciting for me. And normally I don't even post things on social media very much, even though that's what I tell my artists to do, but I personally hate social media. So it was one of the few things I actually thought, I'm actually going to brag about this a little bit, because I am excited about speaking at All That Matters. I've been in the United States since 1999 now. I started my career in Singapore, working for the old version of BMG, the label. There's another incarnation of BMG now, but this is the old one. And from there on, I've only ever worked in the music industry, actually. What is different for my path is that I've worked in every genre of music, from hip hop, rap, pop, alternative, classical, opera. I mean, the only genre that I haven't touched is country music at this point. And it's pretty exciting. I'm now with TAP Music. I'm the president of TAP in the US, and we are primarily a management company for artists, like you mentioned, Dua Lipa, Ellie Goulding, Lana Del Rey, Haley Steinfeld. But we also have a label, TAP Records, and we have TAP Publishing as well. So, we like to be very self-sufficient at TAP. We like to be able to do everything ourselves. And, we obviously look to strong partners that can help execute our vision for our artists. It's been great. I've been with TAP for about coming to 2 years now. Prior to this, I was head of marketing at Rock Nation, which is obviously Jay-Z's company. And when I was at Rock, I got to work with Mariah, Rihanna, Jay-Z himself, amongst many other artists. And throughout, like I mentioned earlier, I've even been at the Metropolitan Opera in New York City, and I've been head of classical music at EMI. So it's been quite the adventure for me ever since I left Singapore. It's been great.
So clearly, the new opportunity for you is country and western business. Wendy, you've mentioned some absolutely huge names there. What have the last few months looked like for you, for TAP, for and for the artists themselves?
So right before the lockdown, to be like, well, okay, let's just say this: the first 2 months of the year, for me personally, it was nonstop traveling. I was constantly going to London and New York. We were full steam ahead working on Dua's sophomore album. So we had she is one of the our marquee artists at the company. So and honestly, like pretty much the biggest female artist in the world right now. I'm sure Oana, who being at Warner Music, would agree with me. She really is an incredible force of nature, Dua, and feel very, very fortunate and proud to be working with her. So when the lockdown happened, we were getting ready to put her album out, and everything kind of came to a halt. We had to reinvent how we were doing promotion, which is difficult because Dua is a very visual artist, and and it involves a lot of dancers and a lot of it's for the big stage, her performances. So I think that we definitely were able to strategize internally as a company and help Dua produce some incredible performances online, which really set the benchmark for what a live stream performance should look like at home. And whilst doing that, we also had the entire album leak almost a month before it was about to come out. And, we pivoted very quickly. And initially, the album was going to move back even further. But the moment it leaked, we decided with Dua, obviously, that we had to get the album out immediately. And it's an album that I think has really made a lot of people happy during lockdown. It's like a really fun, dancey, disco era, 90s music kind of album. So I think that's been really important to bring some positivity to a lot of people who love music, during COVID and during lockdown. And we've been doing that across all other artists too, also during this time. Like we put out Lana Del Rey's first ever audiobook. It's her first ever book of poems, and that also went in at #1, as did Dua's album in the UK. And then we put out Ellie's album, and that went in at #1 in the UK. So like it's been very successful for TAP, to be honest. I know it's a really hard, tough time for everybody out there, and whether you're in sports or music or entertainment or film, but
I think we may have lost Wendy there.
I'm still here though.
Okay, keep going. We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm still here.
Yeah, you're back. You're back. It's been a good year. You've evolved. You've diversified. Keep going.
Listen, it's a really tough time right now. Especially with touring, which is a very, very important part of the music industry. And there are a lot of people who are out of work. Not to mention like a lot of fans who can't go to shows. A lot of people are starved for live entertainment, and I think it is incredible that I get to do this every day still, even though from home. And, we're finding ways to really bring music into everyone's lives still. And tap overall is really just going from strength to strength, and yeah, we feel very fortunate. We haven't had layoffs. We've kept our team very much intact. We're very global in our outlook. We have people in New York, LA, London, Sydney, Berlin, and we're thinking of opening up an office in Paris. So for a management company, I think that is quite unusual. In that, like, even though our main headquarters are in London, but we're actually expanding during this time of COVID. And I think now is the time when we really want to like reach out to other managers and other artists and figure out what we can all do together to get through this, rather than trying to like, this is mine, we did this really well, so we're not going to share any of it. We are definitely not of that mindset, and really looking to this time for more collaboration across the industry.
So that's great. I mean, it's wonderful to hear positive success stories, and then people can hopefully learn from people like you. And like you say, collaborating, learning how you've diversified, learning what you've been doing. You touched on Dua Lipa doing some live stream shows from home. We had a lot of conversations yesterday about the live entertainment business and where it's going, and where people think it will be this time next year. Do you think there will be, there've been a few successes, talk about Dua Lipa, BTS, Travis Scott with Fortnite. Do you think this is we're going to see more of this, or is it just a kind of just for the moment?
So, that's a tough question to answer, but I think we are definitely exploring it, Jasper. We just in the last couple of weeks, we had two of our artists, Dermot Kennedy and Ellie Goulding, and they actually did pay-per-view live stream shows from some incredible venues in London. Like Ellie Goulding did hers from the V&A Museum, and Dermot did his from the Natural History Museum in London. So, we were able to produce some pretty incredible moments in those two concerts, and people were happy to pony up money to purchase a ticket because they knew that it wasn't going to be available the following day as a video on demand, for instance. And we are looking to do more of these, and every time we do it, it's going to be on an even bigger scale. Where we're working on something pretty special right now at TAP, and we're definitely looking to partner up with other management companies and other artists. Like I said earlier, like we're not trying to just win by ourselves. We really want everyone in our industry to succeed during this time. And I think, until we really understand how the landscape of music is changing, like we are going to do more of these live stream shows in the absence of touring. I'm hopeful for live shows to start up again next year. In America, it will be hopefully from the summer or spring onwards. But I think, Asia is probably going to be the first part of the world where, people are going to be seeing live shows again. So I think that's really exciting. And I can't wait for that to happen at the top of next year. I have artists in Australia that are doing shows in November in Sydney. So, I think before we know it, I don't know what these shows are going to be like, to be honest. Like, that's going to be a little confusing with the social distancing and all that. But I think that people are really starved for entertainment right now. And, I really do believe that once these shows go back on sale, that tickets are going to go like that.
We're rather hoping that everyone goes back to live shows tomorrow, but that's another story. I did mean to mention at the start of this session, to anyone who's tuning in and watching, please feel free to ask any questions. We've got plenty of time at the end of this session and during the session as well to ask questions. We've got a question for you, Wendy, here from Timmy. What advice, can you offer any advice for women who want to move up in the entertainment business?
This could take a really long time, but I'll try and be really succinct with it.
2 minutes.
Okay. So I think that you don't feel the need to be liked by everybody. And I think that is something that I don't know whether it's men or women, but as a woman, I know that a lot of my fellow female coworkers and friends, that there is this need to not be disruptive and to be liked by everybody, because that's how you can get things done. It's if you just kind of like get everybody on your side, and I found that very difficult personally, because I was told that I was too opinionated, that I didn't need to speak in every meeting just because I had something to say, whether or not it was right. And I think as a woman, it was important for me to learn how to handle that kind of mansplaining, if you will, to be told, to be put in my place. And I had to learn not to get upset in the moment, but to be more strategic, and figure out how to move the conversation, if possible, outside of that meeting, and do a sidebar conversation just to get things back on track without, oftentimes the person who's making that criticism is unfortunately somebody who is more senior than I was. So you can't really, as a woman trying to come up, shoot down the guy who's in charge in a room full of other people. So I had to learn how to be much more subtle in how I could get my views across without seeming to be attacking a male leader in the room. That makes sense.
Well, Wendy, look, no, absolutely. Look, as the guy asking the questions, I can tell you it's absolutely fantastic hearing what you're saying, and I don't know why anyone would want you not to speak. I'm going to have one more question for you. This comes from someone called Emma, and I know that you're speaking in our Music Managers Academy later today, which is for young artists, newer artists who are not Lana Del Rey or Dua Lipa, but what advice? It's tough at the moment for young artists right now, and like you say, there's no performing. There's if there was one piece of advice you can give to a young artist who's starting their career today, what would that advice be?
I think that, listen, I'll be really honest. There are a lot of talented people in this world who may not necessarily see success, right? Because talent is only part of it. And of course, there's hard work and all that as well. But I think right now, in the absence of the usual route, performing live and getting fans that way, it's really all about social media. And I think that's what the DSPs like Spotify and Apple are looking to as well. They're looking at new artists, why should I promote this artist, apart from what the great music, and this person is clearly a star, what can they bring to the table? And I think the answer is growing your fan base, whether it's on TikTok or Triller or Instagram, and figuring out how to use these platforms to promote your music, but also do it cleverly so that you are engaging with people who are on TikTok, for example, because to be very honest, that a lot of people in the music industry are looking at how a lot of labels, for example, are signing artists straight off of social media without even meeting them in person. So I think that it is really, really crucial to figure out how you can get your message across, how to make sure that you know how to perform well online, and get over any stage fright. But you should also be able to do it multiple times a day, and really there is no other way to promote yourself or your music at this point if you don't engage like that way.
That's great, Wendy. And look, who on earth could ever ask you not to speak? But anyway, thank you so much. Don't go away. We're going to come back to you in a bit. But now we're going to move on to more of the sports industry, actually. As I said, we have a cross-track session. Another new face to All That Matters, but he's not new to Asia. Marc Perman, he's been a talent agent representing some very, very large names for in the sports and fashion and industries for over 30 years. He has worked with William Morris, ICM, and IMG, and he's represented stars for advertising television, and he's also represented fashion icons such as Kate Moss and Liv Tyler. His clients have worked with mega brands such as Nikon, Coca-Cola, Honda, and Visa, and he's also been consulting with Unilever on a number of projects that also have appeared over here in Asia as well. There is one particular artist, one athlete he's been working with for many, many years that we're going to talk about talk about in a sec. So Marc Perman, thank you so much for joining. I know we've tried to get you out here for a while, for a few years. I'm delighted we can. I wish we were in person, but thank you for joining us. Please, if you will, just give a little bit of background into who you are, where you are, and also who you work with.
Okay, thanks, Jasper. And I wish I was anywhere but locked at home right now here in Massachusetts. Would love to be in Singapore with you guys. So I'm Perman. I'm a talent agent, or I've been a talent agent for many years, representing sports stars for advertising, television, broadcasting, books, movies, etc. I'll tell you how this all started. So I was a young lawyer, and I started taking acting classes to get over my fear of public speaking. And this was in New York in the late 80s. And I ended up meeting all these interesting people, and I thought, this industry is for me. So I took a job as an assistant at an agency in New York, and a major NFL star walked in looking for help in his endorsements. And I was like the token sports fan in this theatrical agency. So it kind of became my project. And this is 31 years ago. And we had a lot of success with this guy. I worked on his deals, we got a lot of help and mentoring. And that led to my career path and like the wave that I've basically been surfing since the late 80s. And so in the late 80s, early 90s, I started working with NBA stars. Michael Jordan had broken the kind of what I call the color barrier in advertising in the US. And I just started looking for people who were cultural icons, who weren't cooked, who were interesting. It eventually led me to meeting Charles Barkley, who I've worked with for almost that entire duration of my career.
So for anyone living on Mars, Charles Barkley, one of the 50 greatest players in NBA history, and he's followed his Hall of Fame basketball career with an Emmy award-winning television run. So Marc, tell us about the last 9 months of your life, in semi-lockdown in Massachusetts. What's that look like for Marc Perman?
Well, so we were in Atlanta about to shoot a commercial in the second week of, and then the agency pulled the plug at the very last instant because it wasn't safe to shoot. So I caught a flight home to Boston, and I've been working from home ever since. It took a couple of months to sort things out, but because we have a production company now that we started called Round Mound Media. Charles is known as the Round Mound of Rebound, so we called our company Round Mound Media. I've been developing documentary and scripted TV projects, and the development project is a kind of an ongoing, lots of phone calls, lots of meetings kind of thing. So the meetings are on Zoom, keep going on. I go to the office every day, and it's actually been a remarkably productive time.
Let's talk about Round Mound Media.
Yes.
What's the idea? What are you hoping to achieve? Are there works in progress? And it's just you and
Yeah,
Charles
so
Barkley,
we've got
right?
and we've got different partners on each different project. We're doing a feature documentary about Bill Russell, who was the great Boston Celtic in the 1950s and 1960s, and he was also a really important person in the civil rights movement, in the sort of the earliest days of integration in professional sports. He was the first superstar in the NBA, and he's never really gotten his due. He's the most successful. He won 11 NBA championships in 13 years, including 8 in a row, and he's Charles's role model along with Muhammad Ali. So we decided we were going to get his life rights, and we're doing a film about him. That's one. And that's the one I'm sort of most proud of right now.
And
the
this is with
the others I can't really talk about because we haven't sold them yet.
Okay, so what are the main objectives for Round Mound Media over the coming months and years?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of sports stars, especially in the NBA, have started production companies, and they're mostly younger current players: LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and so on. And we have a lot of respect and appreciation and admiration for the work that they're doing, but Charles is so different. He's first of all, he's 20 or 25 years older than them, and he speaks to a different generation. And he's kind of the bridge between the earliest days of the Bill Russell era, the Magic Johnson era, and the current era. So we're looking at projects that kind of transcend what you would expect from a sports star. And he's got an unfiltered ability to say anything, comfortableness with his own skin, and we're trying to bring that kind of approach to the projects that we're doing.
I know that social change is something that's very important to you and to Charles. How are they, or how is he taking advantage of the platforms that he works with to pursue any kind of social change?
Well, the main one is his job on TNT. As you said, he's multiple sports Emmys on Turner Sports, which broadcasts the NBA, and he's been on there for 20 years. And it's become an iconic show that people watch sometimes just for the game. So they'll talk about issues. They'll talk. There's a comfortableness about talking about race, talking about civil rights, talking about Black Lives Matter that I not really see in other parts of the sports world, and it's changed very much this year. But it's the leading outlet for the NBA and for sports and personalities and all that stuff. So he's really taken that platform. We've also produced films for Inside the NBA that will run for a few minutes, and then they'll have conversations about them. But it's really part of the larger conversation within the league and watching what's happening. The players who have spoken out, the teams who have spoken out. About 3 weeks ago, the Milwaukee Bucks, the last minute, refused to take the court because of a police shooting that had happened in Wisconsin a day or two before. And they were having a team meeting just before the game. We were on a call with the Wisconsin Attorney General, and they didn't like what they were hearing, and they spontaneously said, "We're not going to play this game." And that led to a multiple day in the NBA and even in other sports. It was a pretty remarkable thing. So the bubble between sports and the real world, which never was real, is really completely shattered here in the US. And it's exhilarating and scary, but it's sort of what's happening right now. And the NBA seems to be leading that charge within sports.
We were talking with Wendy earlier about some big names that she's working with, and obviously you're working with some of the biggest names in sport. Are there any young stars that you're looking at working with, or do you have any advice for younger athletes who are trying to survive in a pretty tough time in their lives?
Well, I'm not signing new talent anymore. I'm kind of at the next stage of my career. It's more as a producer than as an agent. But I would say it's the same thing with sports as it is with music. I think you have to build your brand. You have to connect directly with the world because everything has changed. Social media platforms, marketing yourself, just have to go out there. But sports has more of a structure than a lockdown music industry right now. So games are happening, and it's amazing to kind of watch how the leagues have kind of recreated. Like the NBA is playing all their games in one complex in Orlando. That's like the bubble. So the players are still out there. They're still getting seen. And way after like a day or two of watching it, you've forgotten all about there's no fans.
We've got a little bit of problem with your. There's a little bit of a problem with your connection, Marc, at the moment.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to move on to our next speaker and hopefully sort, I think, the Wi-Fi at your end. But this is what happens when you're live, and this is what happens when you're virtual. But Marc, I'm so happy that you've managed to join us. And by the way, people in World Wide Web land, please do keep your questions coming in. Marc, thank you. We're going to come back to you, so don't go away, but we will come back to you in a little bit. Up next, another new face to All That Matters, Oana, Ruxandra. We've heard from the athlete and the artist side. Now we want to hear from the content owners and distributors. Oana has been leading global digital strategy and business development of Warner Music Group and their M&A related activities since June last year. She oversees their global digital partnerships and negotiations with a focus on exploring new forms of commercial innovation and creating new digital revenue opportunities. It's the fun job, right? Previously, she has worked with BlackRock and Constellation Capital Management before moving on to Universal Music and then on to Warner. So, Oana, thank you so much for joining us. Where are you in the world tonight? It looks like tonight.
Tonight, I'm in New York. Thank you, Jasper, for having us. I'm in New York. Actually, just moved into a new apartment this past weekend, so it's nice to be here and have Wi-Fi.
Your role is less about artists, and obviously not about athletes, but it's less about artists, but more about industry development and relationships. Please can you let us know a little bit about you and what your role and who you're working with, and yeah.
Sure. So the role is multifold, but fundamentally we exist to build value for our artists and our songwriters, and that underlies really everything that we do. It's about building stronger relationships between our global tech players and market, but then also continuing to drive the relationships between artists and their fans, and also new sources of value for artists. So the team is broken up into a number of different areas, but generally, there's a group that drives revenue for Warner artists through partnerships with global platforms like Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. There's a team that's focused on diversification of the current business and the evolving forms of artists and songwriter and fan engagement. So that's really everything from songs to premium music videos, but also podcasting, live streaming, and social. I know that social has been mentioned a number of times tonight. There's also a focus on creating incremental value for our artists and songwriters by experimenting with new forms of technology and consumption. So this includes anything from supporting startups, which we have deep roots into that community, and then also focusing on new next-gen types of content, gaming, AR, VR, all of the acronyms. And then you mentioned M&A, so we do quite a bit of M&A within the team. And then the last piece is really driving the research and analysis across the company. Everything digital is rooted in data and analytics, so we spend a lot of time focused there as well.
Obviously, there's been a lot of reports about extremely positive surge towards streaming over the last 9 months. What have the last few months looked like for you and your role within Warner Music?
Yeah, it's been intense. Marc mentioned productive. I think that's a great word for it. the number of people listening to music has never been greater. The number of ways in which people experience music and experience fandom has never been greater. So there's a huge number of new business models emerging from every corner of the planet every day. So COVID has really accelerated the digitization of nearly all businesses and behaviors. Our lives are far more digital and virtual today than they were just a few months ago. And I really feel like we've seen 2 or 3 years worth of digital transformation over the course of the last few months. So there's a lot of work that we're doing in this space to ensure that Warner is evolving to really match and anticipate the characteristics of these new platforms and new consumption patterns and the expectations of our fans. We're actively looking to engage our artists with music fans across platforms, across new technologies, across use cases. And it's really important for our digital strategy and what we're leading to super serve our audience and our partners. And we're focused on native, authentic integrations that feel enriching to the experiences that people are dealing with each day in their lives. People are focused on virtual performances, podcasting, digital goods, mixed reality, anything AR, VR, gaming. So it's been a lot of things that we've been focused on over the last couple of years, just moving faster at a really fast clip and accelerated pace. And we're just, ready to go, ready to dig in.
It's a world that's changing every day. I mean, we had Ulla from TikTok on yesterday, and he was talking about measurements in the trillions in terms of audience, plus also a whole new format change in terms of measurement by the number of creations. So are you seeing any new into the future? Are you seeing any new exciting developments coming in the music industry with format changes or technology changes? I mean, technology has always driven music, right? From the advent of the wireless radio and the radio and the record.
Well, technology and also then consumers and how they want to consume and interact with music have really driven how our artists interact with them. But I have a pretty broad view of what the future looks like, and it's kind of not 2 years or 3 years down the line, but it's robust, and it's about metaverse, right? Where we all have headset devices, and the digital and physical worlds are intermixed, and everything is persistent and synchronous and live. We have unprecedented interoperability of data, digital assets, content across the globe, and the things that we see within these, future headsets are populated by content and experiences created and operated by a wide range of contributors. So all of us are part of creation. All of us are part of this kind of drive to a future state. And that's a few years certainly down the line, but that's what Warner is working to understand as we build out kind of this label of the future.
Obviously we talked a little bit about live with Wendy and Marc. Does the live industry cross your office, or are you strictly digital and enjoying it?
So live streaming does, but not live. Obviously, we like to have our hand in everything at Warner, so there is an amazing team of people that manage the live and touring side of Warner, but that is distinctly not my area.
So on the live streaming side of things, we touched on Dua Lipa, we touched on BTS and Travis Scott, and do you think we're gonna see more pay-per-view, more live stream concerts? Are you now competing with Netflix for people's attention?
So I definitely there's certainly going to be more access to live, right? But one of the things about live is that it's not just streaming a concert without engagement. The thing about what people and consumers want is to be engaged with their artists to be able to reach out and communicate with them directly, and to also create the space itself, right? The Travis Scott, the Marshmallow, the Fortnites of the world, the Robloxes of the world. These companies are creating spaces in which people can mutually create events. And that's the type of content and live streaming that people are going to be looking for. One of the things that's so great about being at Music Matters, and why I'm so excited about this conversation, is that really, like APAC and China specifically, it's so far ahead of the game in terms of the evolutions around live streaming and monetization and fandom. In the US, for example, we live stream a show and there's thumbs up and thumbs down, and that's really where the experience has been ending. But in China specifically, there has been such investment from fans into their artists around live streams through digital goods, through tipping, etc., that there's been a new way to experience fandom. And I think that that's something that will definitively come into the US, and has already come into the US.
My next question was going to be what excites you the most about Asia Pacific, but I guess you've answered that. But Asia is a very big part of the world. 2/3 of the world's population. Have you seen any other developments coming from here that you think may be adapted into other parts of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're a global company, right? And my role is global because digital has to be global. So we spend an enormous amount of time learning from our teams in APAC, as well as the rest of the world. There's different types of consumption patterns and different types of fans within different areas. And so it's important to understand local trends, as well as trying to define those local trends over the global expanse. So we're learning an enormous amount from APAC. I mean, anything from the work that we're doing around helping artists to create virtual presences on digital. I'll go more into that, but there's going to be some press around that at some point soon. So there's a lot of work being done on the virtual side that is led through our APAC business.
And did you say you can go into that, or did you say you can't go into that?
Unfortunately,
you can't. Sorry, I misheard you. No, absolutely no problem whatsoever. Look, Oana, thank you so much for joining us. What we're going to do now is hopefully we're going to come back to all three of you now, and hopefully Marc's Wi-Fi is back with us. You were jumping around a little bit, Marc. I think we heard everything you were saying, but you were jumping around a little bit. But I'm going to come back to you, Marc. I'm sorry?
I said I think I'm back.
You are back, and you look great. I'm going to come back. I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked Oana. What excites you the most about the Asia Pacific market?
It's in sports and in advertising. Asia Pacific has always been this incredible innovator, as well as a parallel universe that we in the West are only fleetingly familiar with until we go there, until we, and you really become part of that culture. Watching baseball in other countries is a remarkable thing. Watching basketball in other countries is a remarkable thing. But I think that we are, we're producing one project now that it would be filmed in China if we were able to film in China right now. And I think it's a truly international world now. And we've always looked at it from the point of view of Western Europe and Canada, but we're now able to do business all around the world. And so Asia to me is the most important place for us to learn and understand and do business in. And it feels like we're going to come into an era now that I hopefully will be able to do that.
Well, the first invitation for All That Matters 2021 is coming up now, ladies and gentlemen. We are now formally inviting Marc and Charles Barkley to join us in Singapore in September 2021. Wendy, for you, obviously Asia is a homecoming and Singapore is a homecoming. What excites you about the Asia Pacific region?
Well, I think that the priority that Western markets have placed on Asia Pacific has dramatically changed over the past 2 years with the rise of streaming. You know, territories like Philippines and Indonesia and Thailand, which were often overlooked by artists and US and UK labels, have suddenly become very, very important countries because of, you know, the vast populations in these countries, and how it can really tip the scale as far as streaming is concerned. You know, like even um, last year I went to the Philippines and Indonesia and Singapore with my client Haley Steinfeld, and you know that again, like that's not something that would have typically happened all the time with big artists, you know, unless they were going there for a paid date, right? This was really strictly for promotion. So I think that's really exciting that streaming has really tipped the scales in Asia Pacific's favor. I do think that it is incredible what is happening with K-pop, you know, how that's really put Asia Pacific on the map as far as music is concerned. And um, I do hope that we see more breakout artists from other countries in APAC. And I think there is also some education on both fronts, right? Because you can't lump APAC into like one region so easily because there are so many different languages and cultures. It's just you just don't think of Europe the same way, right? And APAC shouldn't be the same either. Secondly, I do also feel quite strongly that the future for APAC in terms of music lies in education. Music education, I don't feel is a priority for many countries in APAC, and I think that needs to change. I think that, you know, young people who have an affinity for music should be given the opportunity to really learn and explore, and you know, be given opportunities to work in the industry, whether on the creative side or on the business side, and that with that comes, you know, with an understanding that, you know, music education is not something that you cut from, you know, that it is important if you want music and creativity to thrive.
Thank you, Wendy. So the next few questions, and if there are any questions out there in World Wide Web land, please keep them coming in. But the next few questions, let's talk about you as people rather than you as working for your companies. I'm going to come back to you, Oana, first. Which artists or athletes have you seen over the last 9 months personally that you've admired in doing things differently through the COVID period?
I would say, so in terms of public figures, there's an enormous number of public figures that I'm following today, and a lot of them are female or identify as female. So Alicia Garza, Rachel Cargill, Renietta Lodge. In terms of artists, I've got to say that Cardi B has had, you know, a phenomenal summer. She's a very clear voice of reason for me right now, and her live Instagrams are a pleasure to watch on a consistent basis. And today she actually just hit the global song charts, Billboard's branding global song charts. So she hit #1 there. So congratulations to Cardi.
Same question to you, Marc. Who have you seen? Doesn't have to be music or sport. You know, who's impressed you over the last few months?
Well, I'm going to say in sports, especially since sports has started happening again here in the U.S. I would say the Milwaukee Bucks as a team for refusing to play out of conscience. Individually in the NBA, I would look at LeBron James and Chris Paul. I saw Chris Paul a couple of years after winning a playoff game against Golden State be interviewed after the game, and he didn't want to talk about the game. He wanted to talk about something that had happened in a city. And it gave me the idea for a project that we're now pursuing. And I was thinking about, how did this man on such a platform that he was able to talk freely about this in a post-game interview that should have been about sports. And it made me think about labor unions and the power of public figures that they have. And I feel like we're in an era now, especially when it has to do with race and social justice, that athletes are using those platforms to make a difference. And I mean, this is really, it's the young people's time now, and public figures, but especially in my world, athletes are taking full advantage of their platforms right now. And I think it's a really gratifying thing to see.
And same question to you, Wendy. I know you mentioned some great examples already, but I'm going to ask you who's been impressing you out there. They don't have to be part of tap management.
To be honest, I think what Marc said really resonates with me. I am incredibly impressed by, public figures with large social followings, whether in music or film or sports, that have used their platforms to spread the message on social justice and, really try to help their followers understand what is going on in this world. And they often get a lot of backlash because they are often told, like, stay in your lane, no one cares what you think, you should just keep making music or play basketball. And and they get a lot of pushback like that. So whether it's Stephen Curry or whether it's Alicia Keys or Cardi B, Padma Lakshmi. Like I respect all these people who, refuse to back down and continue to use their social media platforms to spread, positive messages and highlight negative things that happen in our world right now.
Wendy, there's a question for you specifically that's coming on chat from someone called Zaria. How does one get in touch with you and talk about a possible collaboration? Maybe we'll do that one after this session. But I think for any artist who asks that question, to always be selling, fantastic, and that's why I asked that question. And there's also a message from Sammy Shiramore, who I think you used to work with, who sends her very best. She's in our team here, and she's asked me to say hello to you. Sorry about this. This is a total diversion away from the panel, but the team is so happy that you're all with us. Okay, look, we're gonna come into the final couple of questions now. I think we've now got this little order going. So Oana, I'm going to start with you here. With the gift of hindsight in 2020, is there one thing you would have done differently through the year?
No, not to say that I haven't made a million mistakes. And I've definitely spent nights awake hoping and wishing that I had a do-over. But I lead a digital team. We're focused on creativity and innovation every single time we fail. It's something that we've learned and something that we're trying to be better at. So for me, outside of, by the way, pushing on real diversity within the team, there's not specifically any failure that I would point to that I would definitively change.
That's great, and I'm not asking about failure. It's more about if there's anything you could have done differently. I would have spent much more time with my family, but I don't think they want to spend more time with me. Marc, is there anything that you would have done differently over the last few months if you had the gift of hindsight?
The last few months have taught me to something that I continuously need to learn in my life, which is to trust my instincts and to trust my gut and my judgment. And the working in kind of digital isolation that we've mostly been doing this year has been really, really interesting for me, because I've got to work on stuff without worrying about what other people think. And it's been, as I said earlier, it's been a really, really productive year because of that. And so I think what I would have done differently was work this way with more confidence and not caring what people think earlier in my career, earlier in my life. But it's, no time like the present.
Nice answer. And same now to you, with the gift of hindsight, anything you would have done differently over the last few months?
I actually did make the changes because the first few months of lockdown, I found myself extremely stressed out, and the boundaries between work and personal life disappeared. So I really took measures to create a routine for myself, and to, really be compassionate to myself, and not just do great things for other people. And that was a lesson that I learned the hard way, because it really did get to a point where I felt like things were spiraling just because there was so much bad news everywhere. And the only way to feel good about what's happening right now is to be kind to yourself. So that's my takeaway.
That's great. Yesterday when we were interviewing Cookie Monster and the Sesame Street team, the insight that came out of that was that kindness matters. So if we can have this theme running through the whole of this week, then I think we'll end Friday with a big smile on our faces. Okay, final question for everyone, and this is the one I love to ask everyone, and it's probably more relevant today than ever before. We've got three extremely successful people here. So fortunate to have you joining us. What advice would you give to your younger self? If you got to meet your 15-year-old self and could do it all again, what advice would you give them? Let's start with you, Oana.
So, I think I spent a lot of time not necessarily following my passion. And so that's something that I would let my younger self know. The other piece is really, and I was told this one time, to be okay to be assessed or to be judged by my potential, as opposed to exactly what I had done, as opposed to my accomplishments. I think a lot of people in life are focused on potential as opposed to exactly what they've done. And I've always been really focused on getting all of my work done and getting all of my things done. And so I would like to say that maybe being a little bit kinder and assuming that there's some potential there would be helpful as well.
I can't. I'm sorry. The be kinder. You have always come across as being an extremely kind person. So, Marc, the same question to you. Your 15-year-old self, and you are in a room together. What advice would you give?
I'm going to go with Oana's answer because I don't really have very much to add. But no, I think it's really appreciating the journey and the pursuit and the goals, however sort of elusive some of them seem, because I'm one of those people who, I've had a lot of successes, but I never stop to enjoy them. It's always about, what's going to happen next? How are we going to get there? What's not working? What do I need to do to fix it? And I think it's sort of enjoy the process more. And it's, as you get older, I think you begin to understand that, but I don't know. It's just like, enjoy it. It's great. And just keep doing your thing and not worrying about how it's going to work out.
Thank you, Marc. And we had the first word from Wendy. We're going to have the last word from Wendy. You're in a room. You're in a restaurant with your 15-year-old self. What advice would you give her?
So I touched on this a little bit earlier, and I think I would say stop worrying about getting everybody, like being liked by everybody. It's more important to be respected by everybody than to be liked by them.
That's a great insight. Okay, so we're pretty much out of time. I've been writing like a ton of notes, which is where everyone shouts at me for looking down. But a really wonderful session from three incredible people in very, very different roles. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to the talent and the content that they're creating. We've heard about diversifying. We've heard about collaborating. We've heard about growing your fan base online and do it a lot, which I think was a wonderful line. We've talked about building your brand as a new artist and connecting with fans. Now, this is something that has come through in Music Matters and Sports Matters for the last 15 years, but now more than ever to connect. There's some really exciting new models coming out, some new formats certainly in the music industry. Good to hear that Asia Pacific is ahead of the game, and hopefully will stay ahead of the game. So hopefully more people will come here in September next year, when we'll be physically back at the Ritz-Carlton. We talked about follow your passion. We talked about be kinder. We talked about enjoying the process, and we talked about respect more than like. So with that, I'm going to say a massive thank you to our friends in America. Thank you for staying awake tonight. To Oana, to Marc, and to Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today at All That Matters.
Thanks
so much, Jasper.
Bye. Thanks, Jasper. Thanks, everybody.